Welcome to our new campaign on My Masterpiece, My Family. And as we're just finishing up the Christmas season, you'll notice we begin with the Feast of the Holy Family. And we're following up on what the Holy Father Pope Francis gave us in last year's catechesis. If you've noticed, all of last year, from September all the way through December really, the Holy Father was preaching on the family, especially with the highlight on the conference that we had in Philadelphia. And you'll notice also, throughout this campaign, we're going to focus on 7 different themes relating to the family. And those themes are going to be the foundation of the family, our relationships, marriage, the life within the family, the problems that the family faces, dimensions of the family, and the transmission of life in the family. So today we're going to focus on what is the foundation in a family. And I think it's common sense. We know that the foundation of a family begins because what? One man and one woman fall in love, they get married, and they have children. And with the transmission of life to the children from the father and the mother is born the family. So really, what is the foundation? It is a husband and a wife who become a father and a mother. Now in today's world, we have to be honest. The idea of masculinity and the idea of femininity, the idea of fatherhood and motherhood, the idea of what it means to be husband and wife, these things have become under so much attack. Not even in just the last couple of years, for decades now, there's been chronic confusion as to what is the meaning of being a man and a woman, what is the meaning of being a father or a mother, a husband and a wife. So unless we get that foundation solid, we're never really going to be able to understand what is God's plan for the family. So we'll begin with motherhood. Now, we all know that motherhood has been in crisis for a long time, at least in this country, in the Western world in general. And I think there's a cause for that. You know, we live in a world that right now puts a premium on production, on productivity, on getting things done, on having a career path. And when the focus in a culture is on those things, when the focus on a culture is on material achievements, on getting a degree, on holding a certain position, on having a certain image in society, well, something as non-glamorous as raising children, as taking care of the next generation of youth, is not going to have a big premium in life. And yet it is fundamental. There is no vocation in life really that's going to be more beautiful than the vocation of a mother who is a beautiful wife, a beautiful mother, who dedicates herself as best as her circumstances allow to caring for and raising the children that God has given to her. And I have to admit, I've personally dealt with this situation in my dealings with young people on multiple occasions. I have one particular friend. There was a marriage I celebrated just last June, shortly before coming back to the United States when I was in the Philippines. It was kind of, if you want, my last big marriage celebration, a big kind of fancy wedding and what have you. Beautiful young lady. And I remember when she first met her now husband, when they first started dating. I remember when they started getting serious, when the question of engagement came and the question of marriage came. What was this young lady's big crisis in life? It was that she still had dreams and aspirations. She still had in her mind so many plans that she had always conceived of doing. She wanted to go abroad and study, get her master's degree. She wanted to have a successful business career. She had so many of those ideals and plans already set in place that when the idea of starting a family and raising children came about, she was in a real crisis. And it was, in a certain sense, it was a pity because we're dealing with one of the most beautiful couples. And it took her a period of over a year to slowly, prayerfully come to grips with the fact that when I become married, when I become a mother, whatever those childhood plans were, some of those are going to change. And of course, we don't want to tell her that, look, you will never be able to do any of those things. It's not a matter of saying a woman can't do those things, that they won't ever have the possibility to aspire to those things. Of course, we want the mother in a family to be able to have that kind of flexibility and freedom. But the problem is this: where is that deep-seated desire for those career plans, for that college degree, for all of those things coming from? Fundamentally, it's coming from a society, and in her case, a personal concept that, whether or not she wanted to face up to it, did not really truly value raising children, raising a family, as being something prestigious. And we need to create a culture that properly values the prestige and the beauty of caring for a family, of caring for each other, and of creating a climate in which we can truly have a domestic church, a relationship of love, an atmosphere in which children and the transmission and formation of new life is our primacy. What is a woman specially gifted by God to give? Women and men, obviously, we have different qualities, we have different gifts. And within a family, generally speaking, where is the tenderness in a family going to come from? Frequently, generally, it's going to come from the mother. Who is going to be the one who is attentive to all the little details? Generally, it's not going to be dad, it's generally going to be a mother. Who's going to be the one who nurtures, who is there when our children are in need, when the children fall and get hurt or what have you? Who do they turn to? Instinctively, they turn first to a mother, then later on to a father. But the mother's role is going to be that tender, nurturing role within a family. And now, as far as being a father, again, just as much, I would even argue more than with women, more than with mothers, in our modern society, the whole concept of fatherhood has also come under attack. What does it mean to really be a man? What is my function? What is my mission in life as a man? And what are my responsibilities to other people, to those around me, to my children, to my wife? What does God expect of me as a man? Unfortunately, in the past, there have been so many moments, so much time where there's been a mistaken concept of masculinity. We've had the idea of the domineering dad, maybe, and maybe even to the extreme of being the abusive dad. And then in recent generations, we're starting to find the opposite happening. No longer so much the abusive or domineering male figure. A lot of times it's just simply the absent, the non-present male figure. Both of those extremes, and they are extremes, both of them are deficient understandings of what is our role as a man. Sometimes we get these men who get into their mind that all I have to do is, as long as I'm making a certain amount of money, I don't need to necessarily be around the house. I'm taking care of the wife, I'm taking care of the kids, they get a certain school, my wife gets had enough money to buy nice clothes and stuff, I'm doing my job. You're not doing anything. You're just doing one of the minimal requirements. Because a responsibility of being a father is not simply to make money. To be a father is something relational. It means to have a mission entrusted to us by God Himself. To imitate God the Father Himself in loving, caring for, protecting, raising, forming a new generation of life, of human beings, of boys and girls, and of caring for and cherishing and loving a wife to whom I've united myself for the rest of my life. The task of a father, if you want, we can summarize in 2 words: benevolent strength. Benevolent strength. And if either one of those is missing, we have, if you want, a deficient father. Of course, there are no perfect fathers in the world, but this is the ideal that we're aspiring to. If a father has strength but isn't benevolent, what do you have? You have a tyrant. You have the authoritarian figure. You maybe even have the abusive dad. And if a dad is benevolent but isn't strong, doesn't provide security, what do you have? You have a man who doesn't provide the fundamental backbone, the rock on which the family is meant to be built. You have a nice guy. And being a nice guy is not going to accomplish, it's not going to live up to the challenges that our world has. So what are some of the things that we need to do, especially as dads? All parents, but especially as dads. Well, I remember one time talking to a friend of mine. He lives in Pennsylvania, and very tremendously economically, tremendously successful guy. They have a very big business, and he happens to be president of it. So he used to have to travel a bit, and he's a very high-profile figure in many regards. And he had a lot of kids. I think there were 8 kids, if I'm not mistaken. And I once sat down with him and I asked him, you know, how is it that a guy in your position is able to raise a family the way you did, where the kids all come out so well? Because a lot of the times the guys in your position, the kids don't even know their dad. They feel unloved by their dad. And then we have these kids with drug addiction problems and what have you. And I remember he told me something real simple. He said, at the time I was a seminarian, he said, brother, you know, a lot of times I hear about quality time. You know, we need to spend quality time with our kids. He says quality time is baloney. He said we need to spend quantity time. And that's the difference. So this guy, now he had the luxury to do it, but this guy used to make time every night when he could to pack his kids' school lunches, to go over homework with them, to discuss with them what are your teachers teaching you in school, what's going on in your lives, he spent personal time with each one of his kids. He says, when you spend personal time with each one of your kids, I mean, obviously some days he would, maybe 2-3 days a week, he might be traveling, but when you're spending personal time with your kids, whenever the possibility presents itself, and you're making a priority of that, you don't need to be going to Disneyland every year to make up for it. You don't need to be buying expensive gifts for your kid just to make up for the fact that you haven't been present in their lives. You know, when I was in the Philippines, I was doing youth work, and one of the last things that I did was a father and son camp. So for a weekend, we went out to a very beautiful spot with fathers and sons from our school. And one of the things we did, one of the most powerful moments, was we had a questionnaire. And largely the same questions for fathers and sons. So we sent the kids over in their own space, give them 5 or 6 little questions. What do you expect of your dad? You know, what do you look forward to in your relationship with him? What are the things that he does that hurt you maybe? What are the things that you would like to spend more of? What are your favorite memories? All those kinds of things. And we had the same fundamentally set of questions for the fathers. What are your expectations for your son? What are the things that you would like to see from him? What are the things that he does that maybe you would like to see him do better, and so on and so forth? And if you ever want to see a room full of grown men cry, then I recommend you do this experiment. They each go off into their own corner. They have, say, maybe 30 minutes or maybe last 15 minutes or so to try to prepare their questions. And then they come back together and they have a heart-to-heart and they share their answers. And the dads were blown away. Because, you know, most dads, what are we expecting? Well, Dad, I really loved the time that we went to Disneyland. And Dad, I really think, you know, if we could have another vacation at the beach or whatever. Or Dad, I would love it if you would buy me this thing. That's kind of what the dads subconsciously are expecting. And the kids never said that. The kids said things like, if you would simply, maybe we could throw a football together. You know, Dad, one of the most meaningful times for me was just simply with this weekend where you and I sat together and talked or hung out and went fishing together. I remember one kid in particular said, Dad, the most meaningful moment that we've ever had together was when we would go to confession. Once or twice a year as a family, we went to the church and went to confession as a family. Dad, can we do that more often? Can we do that once a month? This guy was floored. He's like, I never expected to hear this from my, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid. And the thing is, our kids have an instinct. They have an instinct to know what is important. And sometimes we trick ourselves. So this is what we're talking about when we say quantity time and not just quality time. There is no such thing really as quality time if there's not going to be quantity involved. So as parents, and again, I'm focusing a little bit more on dads, it's a little bit more my expertise, so sorry moms. As dads, what is it that our kids really look for from us? There's a couple of things. First of all, if you have daughters, what is a father for a daughter, or what should a father be to a daughter? A father, a good father for a daughter, is like a prince. A lot of times in families, you will have the dad will have like a nickname, like the king or the prince or something like that, and she is the princess, or she is the little queen. And a daughter wants to feel like a princess or like a queen. And when there's a relationship where there's a strong bond between the father and the daughter, what does the daughter's ideal of a man become? It becomes a little image of the father. Who does the daughter end up usually marrying? Somebody who's got some of the same qualities as her father. When there's a benevolent relationship, she looks for the same trust, the same comfort that he brought her as a dad in that husband-wife relationship. And conversely, if the daughter has a bad relationship with dad, if he feels that she feels he is aggressive or abusive or not present or what have you, a lot of times young ladies that I deal with, they're scarred. And a lot of times they have a negative perception of men. They feel like they're just going to want to use me. And where is that coming from? It's coming from one way or another that there's some vacancy in the relationship with dad. And as for boys, what are they looking for? More than anything, a mentor. A father for a boy needs to be a mentor. And boys are going to find mentoring no matter what. If they don't find it from dad, where are they going to find their role models? Well, they're going to find it either on TV, maybe some sports figure, and worst case scenario, in a gang. Where do gangs come from? Where gangs offer boys a sense of identity, they offer male bonding, they offer strength, if you want, they offer a challenge and a mission. They offer the same things that they're looking for in a father, but just in a bad way, in a negative kind of a way. And that is the power of gangs. That's why gangs are attractive, because boys who feel part of a group like that, they feel they're part of something important. They feel a sense of ownership, responsibility to each other. And ultimately, that head of the gang becomes a kind of a perverted father figure to the rest. So, in synthesis, parents, what can we say? And this is not to give you people a hard time, because you have simultaneously perhaps the most beautiful and the most difficult mission in the world. But in synthesis, what can we say? We need to give our kids three things overall. First of all, give time. Give our kids time. Not just quality time, quantity time. Giving time means realistically being present. Again, things as simple as when our kids have a soccer game. Do we ever watch them? Do we ever go with them? Do we know anything about their teams or the players on their team or anything like that? That means a lot to a kid. To be present in a kid's life. Even if you don't have all day, even if you work, at least to simply get to know what's going on in their lives. Secondly, give attention. And that basically means listening. It means being able to hear what your kids are saying, because when a kid feels listened to, there will be communication. They will want to open up when they have difficulties in their life and what have you. When a child feels that my parents aren't there, they don't understand, they're not going to listen, they don't accept, they're always judging me, they're always criticizing me, what have you. And obviously as parents, you've got to do sometimes the criticizing and the correcting. That's part of our role. But if it's done always and in a way where there's no listening, my kids are going to pick up on that. They won't bring their problems to you. And then they will have hidden problems. And then they will get involved in things that are going to cause a lot of headaches for them, for you as parents, and ultimately for me as the priest, for the church, for everyone. And finally, give freedom. You know, as a parent, what is our vocation? It is to raise a new generation of independent people, to give them the wings that they need, the capacity to take off on their mission. God gives each one of us at our conception and at our baptism a mission. And what our role is to help form that next generation, to give them the wings that they need to fly, give them the gifts that they need to be able to develop that mission. And that means not being too overprotective. Yes, to give them guidelines, give them suggestions, but give them space too. Let them make their mistakes. Does that mean letting them do chronically horrible things? No, obviously. Don't let them make the kind of mistakes that are going to end up with traumatic, lifelong consequences. But yes, let's let them have their falls and get back on their feet. That's how we develop into men and women. That's how we learn. That's how we become the men and women that God made us to be. The same way that you and I each had of our falls and our weaknesses. So, let's keep this intention very much in our prayers. Be assured of the prayers of all of us priests at St. Peter's for you and for your families. You have, without a doubt, the most important mission in the world. And this is your masterpiece. This is your legacy. This is what you're going to bring with you into eternity. Your work of art, your masterpiece, your family. God bless you.